Fullmetal Alchemist, Under the Faraway Sky. Two more stories inspired by the popular manga and anime series. It's only been a year since the Elric brothers set out on their journey to find the elusive Philosopher's Stone, but a lot has happened in that short time. For one being, Edward has become an official state alchemist, and as such he often finds himself embroiled in one dangerous situation after another. Now, sidelined with a fever in a remote village, Edward comes face to face with an old childhood friend. Even though he's become a valuable member of his country's military organization, Edward can't help feeling a pang of jealousy during the unexpected reunion. While he and his brother are bound to their cruel fate, his friend is busy making his dreams come true. Once again, Edward must wrestle with the consequences of alchemically altered past. The second story will be also included in the edition is a heartwarming story featuring Roy Mustang, Miles Hughes, and Alex Louis Armstrong. The trio of alchemists take a holiday in the woods and discover a mysterious village populated only with children. Oh man. The fourth installment for Makoto Inoue. I had fun reading this one. And oh man, you see me shaking a lot. It's because I've been working out very hard. That's exercising. And yeah, Under the Faraway Sky is an entertaining novel. Obviously, original concept by Hiromu Arakawa. Where do I start? Well, there's two stories. There's two sides of this book. Half is one story of story Under the Faraway Sky, and the two Roy's Holiday, yeah. And yeah, how can I review this one? This is different from previous three, and I'm really excited that I'm almost finishing all 5 books. This is the 4th one, and wow, it's been a really long journey. Thank you, Makoto, because none of these books put me to think, but they put me to think very hard, because of social and political, not maybe political, but things that we suffer today as, human beings. And once again, this novel right here touches those kind of thematic, and I'm really excited to just talk a little bit about them. So the first thing about this one is that first off, Edward is having a dream about his hometown, Risenbul. This is a younger Edward Elric. This is not like the previous book. This goes back, and this goes back to the when he was 13, 12. I can't remember. And he is still a kid. He is still this competitive, short temper. He always wants to be first, and so on. Even Alphonse is there to just take care of him. It's weird when your little brother needs to do that, and it's been all of that Fullmetal Alchemist. So, excuse me. And they start. It starts with a dream, resemble, and then he finds out that his childhood friend is in a place. They're in some other place, not resemble. Sorry. So he wakes up and all. He's sick. He has a fever, and his childhood friend came over. They're in a place under the Faraway sky place, and he finds out that he is a medic or a doctor's assistant, and because of that, his friend, I don't remember its name. It's been a long of reading, and it's two stories in one novel. So bear with me here. So he comes in, and his friend, Edward's friend, tries to check him out. How are his lungs and all that. And as usual, Edward keeps on doing the same thing of who's taller or not, and it felt like, wow, it felt like if it was me with a childhood friend, and we remember all those stuff that we used to do back in our hometown or back when we were kids. It's just a wonderful story. This one, I really had fun with this one. The characters in this one, such as Edward's childhood friend and the other kids, because there's other people here, even the doctor and the other adults who I do not recall the names. You still need to read, I'll tell from spoilers because I really want to avoid that. So there is this type of remembering one's childhood, and this book really makes it a lot cooler. It portrayed well. It is really written very well in a way that you can identify yourself with it, and I like that. I like how Edward remembered the stuff that he used to do with Winry, he used to do with Al, his childhood friend, and what else? There's a lot here. There's a lot of cool stuff here, aside from the mad action that Fullmetal Alchemist has showed us through all these years. So there is this doctor which Edward's childhood friend works for, and he is one of those side characters, more like Edward's friend is his helper. Let's just stick it like that. He puts a lot of advice here, and the advice is that the doctor, not a lot, but it's just one that just like it hit me like directly, and it was so impactful that I was like, wow, this is, I have to I have to consider this as something that it could work for me in the future. And this book does it very well. If you haven't read the previous book, 1, 2, 3 volumes, you're missing out. You're totally missing out. Not just what characters do or not, is that the thematic that these books bring to the reader. And this one in particular, it hit me very hard. Not as just physically, just it changed the way I see and remember the stuff in my past. Stuff in my past is not that tragic or anything. My childhood is almost like Edward's and Alphonse. Not like what they did was something that occurred to me, because alchemy, in the end of the day, it's a type of magic that I cannot do, or whether if it exists or not. And so I felt so identified with Edward in this one. Alphonse, he really did a great performance here, such as making friends. It is very, very weird if Alphonse makes friends, and it's because of his appearance, and that's where I wanted to go. His appearance, and kids being not around him much. But in this one, how they did it, it was like Alphonse explained why he doesn't have friends his age. Is because of his appearance, and of course he is this metal guy that he sounds like a kid, but it's hard for kids to not get scared of a big giant metal armor walking by them. And so it was so beautiful when Alphonse made new friends and kid friends, not his age, lower his age. That's kind of surprising that Alphonse made that development there. Talk about development. The development in this first story, it is well done, just like previous books, and I can see that Edward and Alphonse did make a really good impact in this first story, in such as Edward's childhood friend, and Alphonse's childhood friend, because they all met up in Risenbowl, of course, with Winry and all that. Remembering about Winry and that childhood friend that was there with them, and the goal of them being there was actually no goal of Edward and Alphonse being in that place. It's just that it happens to they being in there. It happens that Edward was sick and they needed to stay there, and this happens. And I love that. I love that things go very natural. It's not forced. It's not a forced thing that, oh man, suddenly happens that his childhood friend is here. But it handled it pretty well. It didn't felt like they being there, they must have to do something. And no, it wasn't like that. The action about this thing, there were no fist fighting at all. There was the Elric brothers saving people from a big flood in that land, and it felt so natural that this book, it doesn't have to have action fighting scenes to be that great, and this one showed it to me. I read it and I'm like, wow, there's arguments there, there's conflict, there's everything that you can imagine, that things don't go how you want to, and that's the greatest thing about this story. Edward just wanted to get out of there. He wanted to look for the Philosopher's Stone. This is a younger Edward Elric, and he just wanted to go straight to this mission. And they couldn't, because he was sick. He was very ill and with fever, and he couldn't leave the place. less with a rainfall, huge rain. I think it was a storm. But going back to the development, it went out there. So development here is very step by step here. It's not just the Edward Elrics that have a really decent development here, even though they never had a goal in the place they were in, but they did. They learned something from it, and they also made things that weren't in their perspective of what happened and what did not happen. I don't know if that it's clear, but just getting my head straight here. So his childhood friend, being a medic, being not just a medic, his father was a studied medicine, so he wanted to continue with that, and that was his goal. I mean, being making medicine for the sick people, and that was his goal. I mean, that was clearly his dream to follow. And such as the Elric brothers, they wanted to get the Philosopher's Stone. And going back to the childhood friend, he in particular means something in that story, and that felt like something that we today are like suffering. Not suffering, it's a conflict today that we encounter people who are desperate on getting something. In his case, let's see if I can tell you this without spoiling. There was a mother with a kid who was coughing a lot. He was born that way, and Edward's childhood friend. I need to. Let's see if I can find his name. It's the first. Let's see if I can find him here. Pitt. Yeah, that's his name. Oh gosh, Pitt. Yeah, that's his childhood friend. Pitt. This was there. There was this mother who wanted to, get his kid coughing, out of his system. There's a trustworthy of trusting someone who can make your medicine for you or for anyone in your family, and suddenly they just want the doctor to just do it. But Pitt, he knows how to do that kind of medicine to take that disease out. But at the moment, that kind of family was so desperate that she didn't trust him, or those are the difficult times in that you or me could be in that kind of situation. And so, yeah, that kind of developed in a way that in the end it was so satisfying. Cannot spoil any of that. You guys need to read it. And so the chemistry with between Edward and Pitt was so great. I could feel that they actually were childhood friends. I actually felt like, man, these two, even though I never see him before, or I really do not know if he was in the series. I don't think so. I think this is only from the novels, if I'm not mistaken. And so the chemistry, the friendship between them was really was powerful. It felt that they were almost like Alphonse and Edward, they were brothers. They were actually brothers who part ways because they have different goals and all that. But they were still there. I mean, they're competitive. The competition was there. Who's taller or not was there. It was very, very fun to read that side of the story. At the end, it was really satisfying as Pitt giving Edward a gift, and not just a gift. It was something that kind of like a little bit of plot twist there, which I won't spoil it to you. Anything else about that first story? Yes. Of course, Edward and Alphonse. Edward, yeah. They use their alchemy and all that. Action, fighting scenes, you don't see that here. It's just a story of they got in there. Edward got sick. The mission to get Edward in a better state of his health. Problem happened in that place. Problem as in nature problems or personal problems or friendship problems was all there. And again, Fullmetal Alchemist always need to have the nature involved, and I loved it. Under the Faraway Sky, always remembering how Resident Bull looked like and how this other place looked like. Wow, I love when Fullmetal Alchemists do this because they metaphorically they put the nature within what humans having problems with it or anything, and I love that. I love that from this one too, just like in the previous one. And so I hope I'm not forgetting anything, even though if I forget anything, yeah, of course, it's this story, 10 out of 10. I loved it. And let's get to the second story. Let's see. All right, second story. All right. So Roy Mustang, Louis Armstrong, and Mads Hughes. First of all, Roy wanted to go on a training, and mostly like a break. And here they are, my favorite trio. Yes. So Roy and his gang. So they first, Roy had a lot of papers to do. He wanted to go to training. He wanted to just get out of there to that, out of the Eastern Command. Was it Eastern Command? I think so. And so, they went out of, the Eastern Command with Mads Hughes. I love Mads Hughes. Poor guy. And Louis Armstrong, which is one of my favorites. And they went off to a mission that Roy must find some particular hidden weapon. Not weapons, weapon. And it was in a certain town. And they went and they find out that a town was removed. And this town, it was full of children. These children didn't have their parents around. So they worked very hard at the place. The grown-ups were somewhere else working, and they just come back within 1 month, 2 3 months maybe. So these kids work very hard every day, such as housework, anything that you do on the chores with the place that you live in. And so I really like this story, and I like this story better than the previous one, just because not just that, the characters, three of my favorite characters were there, such as Roy, which is the number one, Hughes, which I admire that guy, and Armstrong, which I admire him because of his fitness and muscle and building, and muscle as strength as alchemy, and so on. They march to these kids and this town of bunch of kids, and everyone seemed to like Roy and Hughes. Armstrong and Hughes, and also Roy. But there was one kid. Yeah, one kid. I think it was called Tilde, and he didn't like how Roy. He didn't like Mustang, and I love that because they all like the other two, but not Roy. Roy was like the protagonist in this one, and wow, this one in particular made me want to think a lot of stuff here. This is different times, people. Kids alone today, you can't do that. These were different times. This was back in 1920s, 30s. I think less than that. I think it was 1910. Civil War was like, over. I think it was like 4 or 5 years over, maybe. Post-war, let's just call it like that. And here again, the social versus military thematic again. This kid hated the military. Also, they went into a disguise. They never dressed up as the military, such as Roy, Hughes, and Armstrong. They never dressed up as the military uniform. So they went there just like normal tourists. It was weird and funny. Also, the comedy in this one was hilarious. Here, it's just like it was really satisfying. There was also this part that Hughes was being Hughes. You want to see a picture of my daughter? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you love your daughter. You love your daughter. And I love that about him. The characters here were what we always see in the anime or in the manga. And it was so satisfying, such as Armstrong. There were a lot of kids like, oh, lift me up, and Armstrong was playing with them, and they were having fun, such as Hughes, and they were all both having fun with the kids. And Roy, also, he was doing a housework. The house that there was this girl called Rose. Rose and Tilde, before we get into detail, Rose and Tilde were the older ones of all the kids, maybe like 14 and 15. They were teenagers, and the other kids were like 10, maybe 6. It all depends on the place or how old were they. And so Roy was being most likely houseworking, gardening, and Roy here, he did not know how to do these kinds of housework. He was always doing some paperwork at work, and he did not know how to clean dishes or peel some potatoes or doing some things that he doesn't do daily. And Rose taught him to, do it. So, while Armstrong and Hughes were playing and also working, because they also work, they do as as an exchange here. If you're gonna be here, might have to do some work. So they did, and they did it pretty well. And Roy, well, Roy was stuck in his work, and there was this time that he was peeling some I think it was a carrot or a potato, I don't remember. And just imagining him, that he was in this position of this is not what he does every day. And wow, the comedy here in this one is so good. The story is so deep that it touches you. It doesn't hit me like the previous story, but it touches you in a way that it makes you think that what Rose told to, let's just put this as an example, that something that may be not easy for me could be easy for you, so I'm going to teach you. And that is the politeness of a person that that I want in this society, that I want for myself too, because I'm also hot-headed. I'm almost in certain stuff I'm really short-tempered, and for me teaching some people that that is easy for me and it's not easy for them, then that right there, if it's music, which I'm a teacher, I felt so identified here, and I felt like, oh man, this is what I'm going through right now. I'm teaching kids how to play the violin, and it could be easy for me, but sometimes I have to explain a lot and explain one after the other, and you need to have patience with them. And that's what this story is not all about, but it teaches that. It's like it's there, and think about it, and I love that. What else about this? As well, the chemistry between all these kids with them was really cute. Hughes always with Hughes is a really iconic character in the Fullmetal Alchemist series, and his death touched me back in when I saw the first Fullmetal Alchemist. And here you could see him, and you could there's a development in each of one of these characters. But with him, I cannot go back to my daughter without telling her that I had a great adventure. And that right there, just wow. I want to be that kind of father. And it's just so inspiring. This story is inspiring. It's something that it's beyond what I expected from this novel. There's a lot to learn here, and I'm here resuming the stuff here and there. In the end, there is action, and Roy actually uses his alchemy, and it is well made. It was well written. How the scaling of this guy this kid hated so much Roy and all that because of, I don't know, you may find out when you read it, and so on. Man, it's just how they did it, so well done. And so what else about this book? Well, it's easy to read. It also has, of course, the picture, the art, particularly, just like in previous books. It's amazing. Really, it's really good. It's easy to read. Two different stories. First, the Under the Faraway Sky, and I think it was Roy's Holiday, which wasn't a holiday, was mostly like babysitting. and it was just funny, cute, and wow, so many stuff in this one that I cannot get out of my mouth because I cannot remember. Maybe finishing this this review, I can like at least remember something that I forget. Yeah, the all three of them, as in this this book, this story, it felt like a real team. It felt like they all three got their back. It's just so amazing that that these characters, you're reading them, not watching them do something that you usually do. You usually see. My bad. They're just being normal human beings, and that's what I love about this this novel, this volume 4. And I think this will be it. I mean, this is, you can find it on Amazon cheaper than $30. This one came a little bit pricey than usual. It's supposed to be $10, but I think this one is didn't came out in stores. Maybe not. But yeah, Fullmetal Alchemist Under the Faraway Sky. Fully recommended. Easy to read. Awesome story with your favorite characters. Maybe 2 or 3 of your favorite characters are in here. And it's satisfying. There's both satisfying endings that you will never forget. It's just like, that's what I needed to read. And so, without further ado, I think this will be it for my review. I thank you all for watching this video. There's one coming, maybe today or tomorrow. And I think that is the last one of all the novel from Makoto Inoue. Well, people, don't forget to favorite, rate, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for supporting the channel, and I'll see you guys later.